Hello, everyone. The final episode of the Well Balanced series is about to go live. I'm going live with Kelsey, who is on Instagram as Tiny But Mighty Wellness, and she's an integrative health practitioner, and I'm so excited to chat with her because we're talking all about SIBO, Candida, and functional testing, which can be a part of your healing process, and just answering a lot of those questions regarding testing in general, how you can find answers, especially with regards to gut health and all of that. So I'm super excited to chat with her and get going. So I'm going to go ahead and add her in. Let's see. There we go. She should be joining any second.
Oops. How do I?
Other way.
There we
Other
go.
way.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
I'm good. Can you see me okay? Let me turn this up a little
Yes,
bit.
I know. Once you share the
Okay.
screen, it's kind of like you
Yeah.
get smushed.
All right. Okay, here we go.
Cool.
Cool.
How
I'm
was your
so
holiday?
excited. It was good. I mean, it honestly wasn't like what I'm used to because I'm actually with my boyfriend's family right now, and I'm used to more of the like full-blown Christmas vibe with my family back at home. But this year was definitely a lot more chill, so it was actually kind of a nice like switch over, I guess.
Yeah.
It was
What,
hectic, so.
are you off this whole week and kind of relaxing, or are you back?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I'm trying to take this time to just relax, chill out. And so, yeah, it definitely took me a second to like kind of get back into the zone. Because, when you're like on holiday, you're kind of just like in a totally different mindset.
I know. I totally get that. I was like, I
Yeah.
have this live, and then besides that, though, I don't have clients this week or
Right.
anything. So it's like really kind of random. But this is the
Yeah.
last episode of the year, so I'm so thankful to have you and excited to chat.
Yeah, me
But yeah,
too.
basically the combos are super chill, so it's just a matter of hearing a little bit about your story, what got you into this space, how you're helping women with the whole functional root cause
Yeah.
approach, which I think is so fascinating. And then we'll kind of dive more specifically into SIBO, Candida, kind of what those are, explaining to the audience, that it's not the root cause, right? There's something causing that, and discussing how that functional testing that you have as a part of your practice can help solve and create more answers in that area. So,
Yeah.
so take it away. Let's hear a little bit about you. What kind of got you into this and led you to where you are now?
Yeah. So sometimes like when I think back how everything got started, I'm like, where do I even start? Because I feel like it really was like a lifelong journey of understanding like my own health journey, how things all unfolded. But I would say one of the biggest catalysts in my life was my mom actually getting diagnosed with cancer. And so that was like a huge eye-opening experience for me. And that happened like years ago. But I think that was really what propelled me into this space. And I have always been like, I would say health conscious, just like about my own health and well-being, but also my parents, so like my mom and my grandmother, they actually like they practice traditional Chinese medicine. And so, I mean, like growing up when you're a kid, you don't really like realize what they're doing, right? Or like can apply it in your own way. But I think having that exposure also influenced just like my passion for health and wellness. But it really was like my mom getting cancer that really like opened my eyes. And it was just like at the time it just didn't make any sense because my mom was like the most she was like so health conscious and like did all the right things, never smoked, never drank, I mean like like barely had alcohol, and like so it never made sense to me until of course like growing up and kind of realizing like how much stress that she actually had in her life that as a kid I didn't know. But now, like as an adult, like kind of putting the pieces together of like understanding why she got to where she was, and it really was stress. There was a lot of stress in her life at the time that I was like totally unaware of. And so that was like something that had always been in the back of my mind, that kind of inspired me to go into the functional medicine route, because I just like I knew there was something deeper other than, you know, just like the conventional way of medicine, and realizing that there's so much more to disease state, and there's just so many different like root causes that that can bring a person into a disease state, and all of this stuff. And so that was actually like one of the biggest things for me. And during that time of like when I was going through my own healing, after like my mom had passed, that was like I feel like, no, it's okay, like that it was just like one of the biggest things for me. And I didn't realize that I actually, like moving forward as I was trying to heal, I had actually started living in like my own bubble of stress that I wasn't fully aware of either. You know, just like with trying to understand like how all of it happened, and you know how just like how mentally it's just taxing, you know, and like emotionally trying to understand how all of it even works. And so I actually poured all of that into fitness. And so I had actually been doing like high intensity training for a really long time, as like a way of like coping with everything. And so I didn't realize that I actually was living under a lot of stress, even though it was like I thought I was, you know, like healing.
Right.
And so, of course, like, you know, now knowing the things that I know, it's like, wow, looking back, I didn't realize that I was actually living with a lot of stress too. And I was going through my own like issues, had so many different symptoms coming up, a lot of like hormonal issues, like really terrible bloating and menstrual pain, and you know, like all the things I'm sure you're very aware of too, because I know you talk a lot about this. And yeah, like really terrible acne, but just like all sorts. And so it was like, I guess looking back, trying to put all the pieces together, I realized like, wow, like there are just so many underlying little pieces to everyone's health that, you know, if we don't really get to the root cause, it's so hard to actually move forward and feel that balance that we're all looking for. And so that was really like I guess, long story short,
No, I
from
love
like
it.
the big catalyst to my own health journey and how things started developing and like issues coming up in my own life. And then really feeling that inspiration to go the functional medicine route and understanding those root causes, which brings me to what I do now, which is functional medicine lab testing. And yeah, helping other women who have been dealing with those similar issues and similar symptoms to help them find those root causes and rebalance their body, of course, the natural way.
I love that. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think that that's a very common story I've heard over all the episodes I've done this year, and
Yeah.
it's amazing to see how, you know, and I think people underestimate the power and intensity that stress can have on your life.
Yeah.
And I relate to your mom in a way because my mom also had cancer when I was
Mhm.
younger. And it really was eye-opening to see how things were handled and, you know, what was quote unquote healthy in the sense of like
Yeah.
treatment. And now if she had ever had to go back down that route, you know, she would do it 1,000 times differently, and has really seen the power of food and just lifestyle and all those things
Yeah.
that could be really impactful. And of course, like as her daughter, I'm nervous it could be me as well. So I think knowing that there's always something you can do and learn and educate people on, and I think just understanding your body better and knowing how things are supposed to function. Um, Also, you can advocate for yourself a lot stronger in those situations if that ever is something that you're in, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that we're no one's, you know, we all deal with a lot of similar things, and knowing that we have the tools to heal and to
figure out what's really going on, I think is so awesome. If people are willing to look deeper and
Yeah.
possibly change, because I think that's the hardest part for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So with regards to like your personal journey with healing and what you've learned from, your mom's experience and everything, what were some things that you would want to educate women on in terms of your top few things that really made the biggest impact when you were changing your mindset or a lifestyle
Yeah.
practice or incorporating foods or whatever?
Yeah, I would say just like as a part of like the most crucial aspect, I think, in terms of when you're embarking on a healing journey, I think a lot of it is nervous system regulation, which kind of just goes back to what I was just talking about, but like trauma, how that affects the body, whether that's physical, mental, emotional. It does have such a huge impact on the body. Like I've been through it. I'm sure like, you've experienced it in some way, like so many people experience it in their own ways. But that is one of the areas where I feel like is a little bit more overlooked because it's harder to, it's like not as tangible, right? Like it's
Right.
hard to quantify or like understand how to even measure like the relationship with trauma and like how that affects your body physically. But that's why functional medicine, that lab testing is so beneficial because we can start putting numbers and data to, like how your body is actually responding. But it's hard, with things like stress or if you feel emotionally stressed, it's kind of hard to, understand how that actually affects your body because a lot of the time we just think like, oh, if you're just feeling sad about something, like, just do something that makes you happy or whatever. But it does, like over time, if it's not taken care of, it does affect the body so much. And things like, so like one of the things I wanted to talk about, like Candida, and a lot of other gut disorders actually can stem from things like, what's the word I'm looking for? Unaddressed trauma. And so I would say that that's one of the things that helped me a lot in my own healing journey is addressing the trauma that was like rooted in all of my symptoms, and doing nervous system regulation. So like when we talk about nervous system regulation, that is getting to the root. So with like trauma, that's, I would say that's like a root cause of a lot of symptoms that you might face. And so understanding that has a place, that has a part to do with your health, and then tapping a little bit more into the parasympathetic system, basically, because when we have that trauma stored in us, we tend to move more towards that sympathetic state, right? Because we feel like not necessarily under attack, but we don't feel safe, right, in our own body. And so being able to switch over to that more parasympathetic side, which like the more rest and digest, really can help reset that nervous system and allow the body to feel safe. And that is really like the only way that we can get our bodies to start healing, because we can't heal when we're under that stressed out state, right, the sympathetic system. So we definitely do need to rebalance or have balance within the nervous system. And I would say that that's like one of the biggest and usually more overlooked areas when it comes to healing.
So for where people would start with that kind of thing, and of course, I feel like trauma can be a whole range of emotions and feelings and experiences. So, what are some things that you had incorporated, whether it's deep breathing or seeing a therapist or whatever that you feel like people could benefit from?
I think therapy or counseling in any sort of way is super, super beneficial. I did that for some time, which helped so much. Even if it's just, if you don't have access to that, even just having someone that you can trust or talk to, being able to release some of those feelings, emotions with other people is just so therapeutic on its own. But I also do think that doing some sort of breath work, so calming that sympathetic state with breath work, EFT tapping is great too. So these are all things that I've done, which are, like great because they're all free. just breathing, practicing breath work, and EFT tapping, which is just tapping into your vagus nerve, right? So that's kind of the nerve that pretty much controls your parasympathetic system, activating that part. So many other things like even journaling, prayer. There are so many different things I've tried a little bit here and there, and I think, I mean, you got to find what works for you as well, right? But it does help to try different things, or if there's just one thing that really works for you, if that's like meditation, that's great, or just breath work. All of those things really help us tap more into that parasympathetic state. But yeah, kind of find what works for you. But I would say counseling, so therapy and counseling was one of the biggest things that helped me to be able to release like those emotions and not have them like stored inside. That really, really helps.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that, trauma is stored in the body, and it's going to know when you're unsafe and when we can experience those things, and it's going to hold on to those feelings to prevent your body from getting to that homeostasis and that feeling of, healing and all that. So definitely looking into that is important, and assessing your own mental health, I think, is very underrated, but so impactful. So, so when it comes to like Candida and SIBO, if you can kind of like break down what those are and like how those things can come about in the body, and then also some, ways to support those naturally, and of course, including that functional testing element.
Yes. So with Candida, and SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, I would say they're pretty similar in the way that they work, because it's essentially like an invasion in the body with overgrowth. So with Candida, it's actually normal. We have normal amounts of Candida in the body, and it's totally fine. It's a healthy, thing that we have within our bodies and on our skins and things like that. But the problem is when it overgrows. And typically what we see overgrown is Candida albicans. That's what we'll see most of the time on lab testing. But that, and with SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, it's essentially things are overgrown, right? So we do have bacteria in our small intestine. That's totally normal. But it's when it's overgrown that becomes a problem. And so with both, it's really just an overproduction of bacteria or fungus, yeast. Candida is basically a form of yeast, and so yeast and bacteria, we just essentially don't want that to be overgrown in the body. And typically when that happens, when we have an overproduction of yeast or bacteria, that can come from things like stress, like we were talking about. So when the nervous system is not regulated well, especially if it's chronic or happening over time, then we can get this dysbiotic flora growing, or colonies of yeast growing in our gut. And that can happen also with antibiotic use, birth control, inflammatory foods, so like within the diet as well, and external environmental toxins that cause stress on the body. But essentially, they're all stressors in the body. So whether it's a physical, like external environmental or mental stressor, the body sees it as stress in general, right? And so essentially it's stress that can cause this dysbiotic, basically an imbalance within the gut flora. And that's where those colonies can overgrow. When things become unbalanced, the more pathogenic bacteria can kind of like come out, right? But also it can be affected if you've had previous use of antibiotics and birth control and things like that. So those are some of the like underlying causes for things like Candida and SIBO. But in terms of healing and some crucial steps I would say that are necessary in terms of getting rid of it is having some sort of targeted supplementation to get rid of the bacteria and the yeast. So that I would say that's one of the areas that a lot of like gut healing programs miss on is, especially with Candida, a lot of people might follow like a Candida cleanse or Candida diet where we're eliminating certain foods, which is a very important part. You know, you have to eliminate the foods that feed the Candida, feed the yeast and things that are growing in the body. But also we have to get rid of the bacteria itself, right? And so there are a lot of great herbal formulas that help with killing those off. So instead of kind of going the antibiotic route, which, as you know, like it kind of just like puts you back into that vicious cycle because it destroys your good bacteria, we can actually use things like berberine, mastic gum. Oregano oil is also great. Grapefruit extract is also great as like herbal formulas to kill off the bacteria and the yeast because they're all antimicrobials and antifungals. So they're actually very effective in terms of killing off that bacteria. And so that is something that I would say has to be in like a gut healing program or protocol if you have Candida or overgrowth of any sort. It's getting rid of that. So not just having a food elimination plan, but also getting rid of the thing itself. Because if it's still in the body, even though it's not feeding on anything, it's still there. It's still present. So that's one of the things that I would say is the most important aspect of gut healing.
Yeah, no, I think that it's a good point where again, the elimination diets are so popular and people just give up all of these foods and the food sensitivity testing and all of that, which I personally have done as well, thinking, that was going to be the root fix, but it really was a temporary thing to help with the inflammation, but it didn't really attack what was going on actually happening. So,
and it.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, yeah, I was gonna say it does help because it reduces that inflammation, and you can obviously see or feel the symptoms kind of reduce. But we definitely want to make sure that it's gone, right? We don't want that there in the first place. And so, I mean, having nutrition obviously is the foundation as well. So having nutrition, a solid foundation in the diet, but also having that functional supplementation will really, really help. And making sure, just the overall amounts of inflammation are reduced will create a better environment for the body to heal.
And is it one of those things where people can do, the support for a certain amount of time and then, of course, reintroduce those foods back in and also feel that they're not on a protocol for the rest of their life kind of thing?
Right. Yeah, definitely. So exactly. So essentially, like, if we're able to get rid of that fungi and bacteria, that really cuts the whole healing process in half, right? Because if we're eliminating the bacteria and the fungi, then we're able to, once we start healing the gut lining and everything like that, then we're able to start reintroducing some of those foods back and without it irritating the gut more.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think that's the thing too, is people, again, it's like, I have to keep these foods out of my life for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if it's really causing an issue, then maybe, but not the average, apple or something else that is truly nutritious for yourself and for your body majority of the time.
Yeah. And of course it would be like a slow reintroduction as well, like one thing at a time. Of course, we're just going to throw everything back.
Right. Absolutely. So like for like lifestyle practices that support, just digestive health, I know we talked a lot about like the parasympathetic state and reducing stress. Is there anything else that it has been shown to be supportive of these specific issues with people? Or like food, your top, foods that people should incorporate daily, those kind of things.
Just off the top of my head, I would say garlic is one of the, I would say, more therapeutic things that you can add into your diet, because it's also antimicrobial, antibacterial, and antifungal. So that can be incorporated in so many different ways. If it's just taken raw, like you can even just cut it in like little bits and swallow it like a pill, basically. Or you can even ferment it with honey and things like that. So it's like essentially you're creating just like a natural medicine in itself. So garlic is really, really useful. I would say that also cruciferous vegetables, and yeah, so things like cabbage, raw carrots, broccoli, and things like that help with detoxification. So I think that's also a really important step when it comes to healing, is making sure that we're assisting our liver in the detox pathways and patient. And so, yeah, things like cabbage, cauliflower, that vegetable group helped with detoxification. And then it's hard to think of like all the different types of foods out there.
I know
But
there's so
yeah.
many different ones, but that's awesome. And then with regards to like the functional testing aspect, so you know, the foundations of health are obviously so important. So if somebody has never addressed those and they want to go do something like a functional test and haven't really given the foundations a fair go, do you feel like that's a good time to go do something like that? Or do you feel like they should try to incorporate as many changes initially and then see where their other dysfunction continues to lie and then go get testing to kind of narrow down what's happening?
I would say if you're experiencing a lot of ongoing issues, so if you notice that things are happening like over time and you're not really sure like what's going on, and maybe you're already implementing some changes within the diet, eating healthier, and maybe cutting out sugary foods, which do feed candida, and like processed foods and things like that. If you're already doing those things, then I would say that starting with functional lab testing would be the best way to go about it, because again, you're cutting that work in half, figuring out what it, you know, like what's going on in the first place, right? And so I would say the organic acids test and a comprehensive stool test is a really, really great place to start if you are concerned with like digestive issues, or even non-digestive symptoms like brain fog, irritability, mood swings, if you have a difficulty concentrating and things like that. Those are all signs and symptoms of potential candida, and bacterial overgrowth as well. So I would say the organic acids test is really great because you're seeing the end products of the bacteria within your body. So that's a really, really great test. It will also show you how your detoxification is working, and if that is, you know, sluggish or not. So you're able to actually address those imbalances and the root causes, right? So if we're not detoxing well, then of course we're going to have toxic buildup within the body, and we want to be able to have our detox pathways open, especially before beginning a intensive gut healing protocol, right? So before we start killing off anything in the body, we want our pathways to be open. So yeah, those two tests will actually tell you a lot in terms of where the bacteria is. So like on a stool test, you can actually see, you know, if you have small intestinal overgrowth in the small intestine, or maybe there's more yeast, or like if it's yeast over bacteria, then we can actually determine, okay, what type of remedies or next steps we can take, if it's bacterial or if it's yeast. And it's really important to find that out first, because sometimes with bacterial colonies versus yeast colonies, they might react differently to certain antimicrobials or antifungals and things like that. Or if you're using an antifungal supplement, but you actually have bacterial overgrowth, then that it might not be working the way it's supposed to, and they have different reactions to certain herbals and medicines and things like that. So we actually want to make sure that if we are going to be killing off anything, that it's actually doing its job, right?
Yeah, well, that makes sense. No, I think that, again, the functional testing is so amazing. It's worth the investment. If you're, you know, spending $6 at Starbucks every day, you can definitely switch that around and invest in a test for yourself. Well, this was an awesome conversation, and I'm so thankful for your time and expertise. So if you can leave everyone with just how they could work with you, what you offer, and how to find you.
Yeah, so I mean, anyone could go ahead and follow my Instagram account here. But you know, if anyone has like direct questions, either on Instagram or through my email, I think all of that is linked on my Instagram account. But I do have, so all of my programs, I actually help clients with lab testing. To like, if you're new to lab testing, we can always begin with the hair tissue mineral analysis test, which will also tell us a ton about how our foundations are in our body. But I do have shorter term programs and then a 3-month and 6-month programs for people who need a little bit more additional support and want to go a little bit deeper into those root causes. And of course, healing takes time. And so we're actually able to spend more time together working on some of more of those deeper rooted imbalances. So yeah, I believe I have all of that linked in the link in my bio. So if anyone wants to check that out, they can just go there.
I know, it's like, just lead them to Instagram. They've got it.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds amazing, and I look forward to continuing to support you and seeing all the things that you're going to be doing in the future. But I appreciate your time today, and I'll repost this to my feed, tag you so people can look there as well.
Awesome, thanks.
But I hope you have a happy new year, and I will see you in 2023.
Yeah, wow, it's crazy to say that.
I know, right? I'm like, it doesn't feel like the holidays at all, really.
Right. But thank you so much. Yeah, this was great talking to you as well.
Thanks, Kelsey. I'll talk to you soon. Have a
All
great
right,
day.
bye.
Bye.